Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know that you're all extremely busy as we all adjust to this new normal. My name is Elizabeth Bennett, and I'm a part of the network partner team here at Best Friends. Today's webinar is called COVID-19 Fundraising During a Crisis. Our goal is to provide you with examples and insights from Best Friends staff and network partners around the country who have had to quickly pivot and rethink fundraising events because of the pandemic. Like many of you, our panelists for today have had to either postpone or cancel live events. To avoid losing critical operational funds, they've either rescheduled the event or developed innovative virtual alternatives and are now readying their staff to execute solutions in uncharted territories for their organizations. Before I introduce our panelists and our moderator, a few housekeeping items. I will keep everyone muted for the presentation portion of the webinar so that you don't have to worry about accidentally unmuting yourself. If you have a question at any point, please type it in the chat bar at the very right of your screen. We'll pause a few times throughout the presentation to answer questions from the chat, and we'll also save some time, about 15 minutes or so at the end, to answer any additional questions that you have. Also, please note that this webinar is being recorded, and we will send you the recording shortly after its conclusion. I'll now introduce our wonderful panelists. Kim Kamins is the co-founder of Fearless Kitty Rescue in Arizona. Julie Barger is Director of Development for Lynchburg Humane Society in Virginia. Jackie Roach is the co-founder of Taysia Blue Rescue, a national Siberian Husky and Alaskan Malamute rescue. And Trish Tolbert is a network partner development strategist here at Best Friends. Moderating the discussion will be my colleague, Liz Finch. So I'm handing it over to you right now, Liz.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to have you here. I know that this is a very top of mind issue for a lot of us. It has been highly represented on all the Facebook chats around what to do with COVID-19 happening to us. And we've got some great people here today. So I will go ahead and launch into the questions. So this is one for each of the speakers. Tell us a little bit about the fundraising event you initially had planned. And go ahead, Lynchburg Humane can start.
Okay, thank you. So this was our biggest fundraiser of the year. It's called the Best Friend Ball. It was scheduled to go April 25th, and it usually brings in about $110,000. We spend about $25,000 on expenses, so it accounts for about $85,000 of our budget. And it's, you know, your normal band, catering, people bring their pets. Had a theme. You guys, our theme this year was Cruising with the Pets, a cruise ship theme. We were just going to go with it, and okay, now we're not. So we have decided to postpone our event.
Wow, a cruise ship theme even. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Fearless Kitty, tell us about your event.
Hi, so I'm Kim Kamins with Fearless Kitty Rescue, and our event was Wet Your Whiskers. It's our annual wine tasting and silent auction with kitties, and we were scheduled to have our event on Friday, May 8th, and we have now postponed it until Friday, October 23rd. Our event usually brings in about $30,000. That was our goal. Our expenses were about $5,000. So we're just going to continue on. We're just going to postpone our event right now.
And Taysia Blue Rescue.
Hi, everyone. Our event was Huskies Rock, Maui's Roll, and this is an annual spring party that is also masks as a fundraiser. Lucky for us, it's a pretty low level of effort event for us in terms of, you know, the human resources and expense. It's actually our lowest level fundraiser for the year. We have a venue that's donated, a band, and a handful of auction items, but it's really meant to just be a party and to celebrate. This year it was special. We intended to kick off our 10th year anniversary. It was scheduled for April 25th, and we canceled on March 13th. So we were ahead of many in this decision.
So next question then for each of you. Give us a little bit of an idea of what you decided to change to, and then tell us how you came about that decision. What factors were considered when you decided to make that switch? Go ahead first, Lynchburg again.
Okay, so we looked at all the factors that rescheduling the event just really brought. We had a band, a caterer, a location. If we were scheduled in the fall in Virginia is very packed event-wise. And then we saw that a lot of other organizations were scheduling their events for that time too. We also considered the fact our budget year ends in June. We need the money this year. We can't wait until the fall. And we didn't want to compromise our event next year by having an event in the fall and then turning around and going back to our regularly scheduled time 6 months later. So one of the things that we felt confident in, we have already secured $52,000, which is about half in sponsorship. And just putting feelers out and making our decisions, we contacted some of the sponsors and they seemed willing to donate their sponsorship towards a match fund, which is something that we're planning to do. We're going to give them a lot of shout outs, telling them that they've done this, and then we're going to appeal to the public to help us get through this tough time and do small donations to match those funds that they're donating.
Great. Fearless Kitty?
Hi. So for us, there were several factors that we were considering at this time. And one was would the outbreak be under control by the time of our event? We were still about 8 weeks out, so we weren't really sure what was going to unravel. We just didn't know if the outbreak would continue, but if it was under control, would people still want to spend money, come to our event, buy tickets, silent auction items? So for us, our biggest concern was if we did move forward, most likely we would not be able to raise the amount of funding that we had wanted. At best, we thought we'd probably get half. So we thought, well, if we do move forward with our planning, what would happen then if it got canceled closer to the event? So every time we looked at it, we just felt that there was no other decision for us. We had not paid a lot of vendors at that time because we were still in some of the initial planning stages. So we knew we wouldn't be out a lot of money. So that was also a contributing factor for us. It wasn't an easy decision to postpone it, but just as we watched very closely what was happening, to the rest of the nation, we just took guidance from that, and that's how we came to our decision.
And Taysia Blue.
So our board met virtually, of course, on the 13th, and we decided really the only factor we considered was that our event was going to be a large social gathering. It was a big party, and it just didn't fit with the new social distancing guidelines we were hearing. And we felt that it just wasn't really worth the risk, and we needed to be focused on contingency planning, foster recruiting, and other life-saving activities. So the idea of postponing just didn't feel like something we wanted to commit to at that time. So we were about 7 weeks away from the event, but believed the actually, no, it was more than that. It was 9 weeks away from the event. But it was the right thing to do for the health and safety of the volunteers and really put the focus back on life-saving activities for the rescue. We were prepared to pay the band, but they opted to waive this. The venue had donated the space for the night. And so, since this was such an easy event for us, we really wanted to create an easy alternative. And so we opted for a social Facebook fundraiser as an alternative.
Yeah, so let's continue with you and ask you about that virtual event that you guys decided to have, because I know I've seen that comment in some of the threads on Facebook where people are wondering about doing that and they may not have an idea about how to do that or how successful is it really. So can you tell us what did that look like for you?
Excuse me, Liz, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I have one question from the chat in regards to the previous question.
Sure.
So from Durham, North Carolina, she asked, our largest fundraiser, which is a silent and live auction, is scheduled for mid-August. At what point in time should we make a decision to pull the plug, change to a live event, etc.?
I think anybody who has an idea on that, even Trish, if you want to speak to it.
I think it partly depends on the audience, and I'll encourage our other planners to jump in based on how much time they left. But I think those people that are accustomed to having to plan far out, even though a lot of other things have been canceled as well, expect greater notice. If this is more of a casual event where most of the fundraising is being done through online auction or other things like that, you can have a bit less time. But I think we're looking, just to give you some ideas of best friends, our conference is set for the end of June. We're already thinking about alternatives, and it won't surprise me if we give people, a couple of months notice. I think we're going to see plenty of time to know how long this is going to drag out or not by June. So it really just goes back to your audience and what would be their expectations based on how well you know them, from my perspective. Other thoughts from the panelists?
I think I'd be a little nervous about August. I don't know. And then I guess it depends on how much time you put into this event. Like our event, we start meeting, a year ahead of time. We have monthly meetings, and then the past couple months, we moved it up to twice a month meetings with a lot of work in between. So it depends on, in the coming couple of months ahead of you, can you devote the time that you need to this August event comfortably with the way things are now?
And would you also say, if that was Julie, how much money is going to have to be invested that might not be able to be returned or offered as donations as well, right?
Right. I think your vendors at this time, I think, would be very flexible with you if you haven't put anything in, and they're going to want to, get back to real life too and start booking things. So I guess just having that conversation with them, you could let them know what your thoughts are and get their feedback on that too.
Okay, Jackie, do you want to continue with the virtual event and giving us some details on that?
Sure. There was really no magic to it. We asked our leadership team to each create a personal Facebook fundraiser in support of the rescue, and asked them to each make a personal ask to their friends. And then we also shared each of those stories and fundraisers on the main Facebook page for greater reach. We wanted to really capitalize on the grassroots of that personal appeal. And our ask was really simple. Again, this was a very low level of effort event. So our ask was just to pay the $10 cover charge and dance to their heart's desire in the comfort of their own home to support the dogs. And we felt that $10 was an easy ask. It was the price of a visit to Starbucks. It's a low consideration. Most people don't have to consult their checkbook or talk it over with their spouse. And so it was very impulsive, I think, for people to give, which I think made it pretty successful. In a matter of 8 hours, we had the combined aggregate of the leadership team. We had actually exceeded our goal for the night. So it was actually really successful. And we've actually thought about, moving forward, how do we think about fundraising down the road? Do we really want to be devoting our time and energy to some of these events that take up a lot of effort and meetings and that sort of thing, when we could be so successful with such an easy social event?
And how long did you leave the window open for people to donate to it as a quote unquote live event?
My personal one is still open, and I believe most everyone has left it open until, I believe, through the end of the month. So but it was within the first 8 hours was when the bulk of the donations came through. And that was when most of the activity was happening.
Fabulous. I actually attended another fundraising seminar where they talked about the fact that the people did a Facebook Live session where they had the founder speaking briefly, and then their person who was going to be the musician at their event actually still performed, but did it on Facebook Live. So they were able to retain some of the kind of in-person party aspects of what they were going to do. And I know with people starting to do sort of virtual happy hours and things like that to, you know, bridge the gap of the social distancing that's happening, you can also work some things into a virtual event like that could be during a certain time frame and have actual pieces that people can see. Okay, next person is Fearless Kitty again.
We have one question from the chat, Liz.
Okay.
Tracy is wondering how much, if you won't mind, Jackie, how much did you raise from that event?
My own personal goal was 5,000, and I have 3,800 in so far. As an aggregate for the whole leadership team, we're probably close to about 10,000.
Nice. Sorry. Thank you, Elizabeth, for bringing that up. I missed that portion of the question. Fearless Kitty. So in the interim, before this event is happening in the fall, are you going to be doing anything to raise funds in advance of that postponed event?
Heck yes, we are. And I encourage everybody to continue to raise funds because we all need to. A couple of things that we're going to do, and I'm going to jump from where I was going to start, only because I think everybody here is on Amazon Smile. So we know a lot of folks are going to be having to shop from home right now. Make sure you're sharing with them your link to Amazon Smile if you're signed up. I mean, that is going to be a way to just generate income for your group because we're all going to have to be doing more ordering online. We are also going to do 2 fundraisers. We're going to do our online auction, and we're going to take the kitten shower that we were going to have, and we're going to do that as a virtual kitten shower. Right after we decided to postpone our event, we sent out an immediate plea for funding to our donors for some very specific things that we knew we were going to need help with. That included the rent, the utilities, and donations for increased expenses that we were going to have for cleaning supplies. Our fundraising goal for our event was $30,000, and in just a few days, we were able to raise half of that with that plea. We are also going to be doing some Facebook Live, and we have a Maddicam camera in our rescue, so we really want to stay connected to our donors. We're going to do some special fundraising events like raffles and name a kitten. So we're going to have a kitten in the organization, and we're just going to go live and ask folks to, you know, send in a $5 donation for a name, and then we'll pick the name. We are also going to be doing more online selling of things that we have. We have a small boutique, so we're going to do some online selling of that stuff. And finally, we are researching and applying for more grants. And one of the most important things that we're paying attention to right now is the narrative of what is happening to us on a daily basis. This COVID-19 is impacting all of us, and I think we're all having to adjust and make changes daily on what we can and cannot do. We know that down the road, everything that has impacted us is going to be really important to put into a narrative. So we're just making sure that we know our story, so when the opportunity to apply for a grant presents itself, we can have a really good narrative and articulate what our needs will be.
And then we have 2 questions from the chat, Liz. The first one, actually I'm going to do from Becky first. So Becky from Pets Alive is asking, what are you doing with your kitten shower to take it from personal to virtual? Sorry, from in-person to virtual.
We're going to do it all on Facebook Live, and we also have a camera in our facility. So we're just in the planning stages of that. So that actually is a great question. And one of the things that we did when we postponed our event is we actually created a virtual online fundraising team. So we're all just generating ideas and we're doing the research. And for the virtual kitten shower, we're just going to try to take everything that we possibly could do, decorate the room, have kitties in there, naming kitties, and just whatever we feel that we can do at that time. Now, it's going to be a challenge because every single day we don't know what is happening in our country. Right now, we can still maintain our rescue. We are still open by appointment to the public, but that might change. So when it comes to the virtual kitten shower, we're just going to move forward with the planning that we have, and hopefully we can continue to do it.
Thank you. And then one more from the chat, probably for all the panelists. Kathy is asking, so longer term, how will organizations fundraise when so many people will be out of work and when competition with other organizations for funds will increase?
I think you just have, this is Julie, I think you just have to really, we have a very compelling story, and we have these pets that are depending on us to care for them during this time. And we just have to make sure that we're reminding the public of that, and that the pets still need to eat and they still need medical care, and none of that's going to stop. And, you know, we get like these very heartfelt envelopes with $2 in them all throughout the year. And those are the people that aren't going to forget our pets.
This is Kim, and I can jump in as well. I can tell you that that's a really good question, because that is what made us decide to postpone our event. It is going to be a challenge to figure out if people are going to be able to give us dollars and to support our causes and our mission and our animals. It's just something that we all have to continue believing that they're out there, the supporters are out there. When we sent our plea out last week, we were able to raise half of our goal. So people still want to give to us, but you just have to make sure that you're presenting it in a way that they are wanting to give again. So it's going to be tough, but we can do this.
This is Trish. I just totally agree with what Kim is saying, and reinforce Julie's comment as well. And I want to leave time for Jackie to add her thoughts. But I think this plays right into what we've seen historically with Americans giving throughout all of the challenges they faced. And I'll speak to that a little more in just a minute, but I'll give Jackie a chance if she wants to add anything to Kim and Julie's remarks first.
It's really hard to add much to that, but I think it's so important to be really specific about your ask and what you need, and be really authentic. And don't be afraid to just make that ask. If you have a particular treatment that an animal needs, or if you have specific needs for food or for supplies, ask for that and be really specific. I think sometimes I think fewer words are better, and a cute picture, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
never underestimate the power of a cute picture.
We're so lucky to be able to do so much more visually and with video these days, aren't we? I mean, that's one of the huge advantages that I see that we have over past challenges. So if you want me to talk about those a little bit, Liz, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, let's go through and have Lynchburg just answer real quick. How did the vendors respond to the change in your ask of them, and how did your supporters respond as well?
Can I back us up one more time? Sorry. This was a perfect transition. So someone in the chat is asking, how did you send out the plea? Facebook, email, snail mail? I know Trish just mentioned video, but what are people saying are the most effective formats for making that ask right now?
I think Facebook and email right now.
This is Kim from Fearless Kitty. We definitely did our major push with email. But we are also backing that up with social media, Facebook, for sure.
And hey, Julie,
in-person calls, I'm sorry.
Julie and Kim, for just maybe anybody that's relatively new to fundraising, would one of you just speak to the advantages of email and having the contact info versus Facebook, and what the strengths and limitations of that are?
Right. I mean, we have an elderly base of donors who don't have Facebook. So, and those are probably our more substantial donors. So this week, part of my to-do list in regards to this is I'm just calling our older donors and supporters that I know are alone and seeing if they need help and kind of talking through what we're doing here. But I think one-on-one phone calls for those bigger sponsors and donors and participants in your events is going to be very effective. Like I'm just talking, we need to get the word out fast, and email, telephone, Facebook, I think is the fastest way to do that. Doing a whole printed message would take more time and energy right now.
I agree with you 100%. The phone calls are so important. We, just this past weekend, when we were able to raise all of our funds, we got on the phone and we thanked every single one of our donors. We don't normally do that over the phone, but because of this crisis and the support that they're giving us, we felt that that's what we needed to do. We use our email very carefully. We don't send many emails. We do a once a month newsletter. So when they got that plea from us, they knew that it was important, and most of them opened it because we don't send them often. So for us, that was very effective.
And we have a comment in the chat, and it's a continuation of this question. So you guys touched on fundraising as far as Facebook and the advantages and disadvantages of each. Have any of you guys used a GoFundMe page or any other type of platform that we haven't touched on yet? They're asking about the advantages and disadvantages of these sorts of platforms.
We haven't used GoFundMe. Good time to figure it out, though.
Yeah, we have not used GoFundMe either, and we had thought about that, and we felt that for us it wasn't the right platform. It could be for someone else, but for us it wasn't. We really rely on our email platform that we have.
And I think for us, I'll just chime in really quick. You know, I think with the Facebook and some of the social platforms, we're reaching a completely different audience at times because it's, you know, we target a personal friends list and that personal network that may or may not be part of that database and list of current supporters. But we also have, you know, maintain a strategy for email and snail mail as well. And I think, you know, reaching as many different platforms and reaching as many different potential donors as possible is really key.
So Shannon from Belleville Area Humane Society is asking, what did you use as a subject line for the email to get your donors' attention?
Is that, I'm sorry, that question is for me, correct, Kim?
I think whoever was just speaking, Jackie, really anyone who's been using email fundraising subject lines.
Well, I can share this with you. When we were going to cancel our event or postpone, let me clarify, our event, we started out with that only. And then a few days went by, and that is when we realized that we had to close to the public. So the email that we had sent about postponing our event turned into us telling our base that we were going to be closing to the public. I'm looking at the email right now, and what we used in our subject line was "Rescue never stops. We will keep saving them." So that was pretty effective because we wanted to have an action subject line so that they knew we were going to keep going, and that was pretty effective for us.
Okay, do we want to jump then to Lynchburg answering the question, just how your vendors responded to the change in
right.
plans?
Sorry. So the event was going to be held at a historic theater, which has, for now, it's closed until the week before the event, and they're rescheduling all their events. So the theater is going to be closed. They were fine with us. They would either refund our money, or we have it there every year. We'll move it to next year. The band is in the same situation. Their events are all being canceled and reorganized. When we thought about rescheduling it, we gave them 3 dates, and they have already been rebooked. We're going to move them to the next year as well. The caterer, we hadn't paid anything for. They're good friends of ours, and we're going to have a big 75th anniversary party in September, October already. So we'll just use them for that. And then we had paid a deposit for our online auction, and 501 auctions, they've been very flexible about how we can use the auction. We haven't 100% decided if we're still going to go with the silent auction. We have a lot of the things in hand, but probably only about 30%. And it's not a good time to go ask for those things that the committee members hadn't asked for yet. So I think if we just need to do the auction, we'll do it on a smaller scale, and we'll do another one in conjunction with our 75th anniversary. And then we haven't even told the public yet. This is all we're telling the board tonight, right now, in another meeting that's going on. And we've just kind of worked through it with the committee. This is all in the past 4 days. And I've been privately talking to the sponsors to see their feelings about whether they would donate their sponsorship. And so most of these are businesses. This was going to be our 10th annual party. And so most of them are repeat sponsors, and they had budgeted for this, and they were happy to donate or use it towards a match to help us raise more needed money. I haven't gone out to everyone, but the people that I've talked to have been in that scenario. And so if I can secure all the sponsorships, would be $52,000, and that means I just need to make up a $32,000 difference, which I'm hoping to do by really promoting those sponsors and challenging the public to help match those funds, however small the amount. And my feeling is this was a party that was for 300, at max 320 people, but we have 35,000 Facebook followers. So I can reach out to all those people who wouldn't have attended the event or hadn't been to the event and appeal to our need to raise that money for the animals. And I think that I can count on them to do that. Our community really loves a match challenge. Over the holidays, we had a $100,000 match, and we raised $200,000 against it. So for a total of almost $300,000. Now that was at Christmas, but I think some smaller donations could go to help us close that gap.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, Elizabeth. And this is just a timing issue real quick, because I do want to get to Trish's questions, but when did you communicate with the public about your decision?
Tomorrow.
How far in advance of the change?
So that'll be a month out.
Okay. So Trish is with Best Friends and has some great high-level questions that she can answer for us. One of those is giving us a little bit of background. Trish, you've been through some definitely challenging times for fundraising. Certainly in 2008, that was posing challenges to you, and all the way back to the 1990s. Are there any big takeaways that the historical perspective can offer us as we face these new challenges in 2020?
I do think there are, Liz, and you've actually heard some great concrete examples of things that we're doing that honor what has worked no matter what kind of challenge was going on. So for those that don't remember the 90s, we essentially went to war with Iraq or in Iraq for the first time, and we had a recession. The recession looks pretty paltry now, but all the same things that are being said now were said then, as well as in 2008, which more people may remember. But some of the tactics that the organization I was with then and used to help us get through are some of the things that I think are strong now. And if you don't mind, just out of respect for time for more questions from our participants, I'll just wrap in some things I think that we can't afford not to do, if I can go to that double negative. In the 90s, we used the phone to sit down with our highest supporters and those that we felt wanted to be part of making a difference on the trajectory of our story. And I heard Kim say, we're really watching our narrative, we're documenting that. And that's one of the things I think we can't afford not to do, even though I know it's hard to find that time. And maybe this is where you look out to people who have not volunteered with you before, but are great writers, great researchers. They may be at home because of school, they may be at home because they're academics and they're not teaching right now, but looking for one or two people that can help you ensure that you're collecting and documenting that narrative and talking about not only the impact of what's happening on your work, but making sure that you continue to communicate the impact of their gifts, even for those that may not be able to give. So good stewardship, stellar stewardship is one of the things I think we have to keep doing, even if people are not able to give at this time. And that was one of the things that got us through the 90s. We were at 35% of our ops support at mid-year, and we felt like it was mainly fear and withholding that was driving that for people. And so we got ready. And that's another thing that I would encourage everyone to do, that I think we need to be prepared, even as we're dealing with the day-to-day reality, having someone tapped on the team to think about what's the scenario planning, not just for how we alter what we plan to do, but how can we be ready so that when we start to hit a tipping point of improvement, and it won't be as dramatic probably as in the 90s, because we saw a big march then as soon as we declared a truce. This recovery is going to be longer, but 2008, we still, those that were ready for that recovery and knew what they wanted to say, again, because they tracked their narrative, they'd stayed in touch with their donors, they'd not only sustained relationships, and Julie is a wizard at this, and I'm willing to bet Jackie and Kim are too. I just happen to know more about Julie's story. That ability to say to those corporate sponsors, hey, will you donate those sponsorships? That didn't happen overnight. She's built extraordinary relationships with them. And so where you've got those relationships, really keeping in touch and bringing them into what's happening on a regular basis, even if that's just a 5-minute phone call. And if you think, oh, wow, I don't really have any of those relationships, or I don't have any of those higher level donors, just thinking of one or two that this challenge, this bit of adversity could help you start to develop so that you don't find yourself in the same place when the next challenge comes. And it will. The thing to remember that will give you hope is that Americans have continued to make charitable gifts throughout every challenge we've had. And in fact, certain slices of the population tend to give a larger percentage of their income. You'll also see some corporations and foundations stepping up. Those who haven't heard about the Petco announcement, that came out last night, I'm sure we'll be putting, if we don't already have information about that, on the network partner site. They're certainly stepping up, but people locally. And I really feel, and Julie's example of their community and matching, I think is a great one, that when we start to see signs of recovery, people are going to want to come back strong, and they're going to want to come back locally. So thinking about how you take that narrative Kim talked about and present that to a larger audience, regional or national, but also how you present that to your local audience and who you continue to steward, I think will also help along the way. Questions about any of that?
Yeah, Elizabeth, I actually think we can jump to the questions from the chat.
Great. All right. So we have two. So one from Nancy. Do you have any specific advice for new nonprofits at this time?
Collect your information everywhere you can. My greatest concern for new nonprofits is that with all of our emphasis on social media platforms, we're not gathering the contact information and we lose the opportunity to discover who our donors are. And you want to know who they are so that you can continue to build relationships with everybody, but essentially with people of higher capacity so that you know who your friends are that you can turn to in times of adversity. The other thing I would say to new nonprofits is network. This is such a caring community in so many ways. And so I would hope everybody on the call is a network partner already, but that Facebook group, if you don't use that to share ideas, please try to, again, assign somebody on the team just to spend 10 minutes a day going through that Facebook group looking for ideas. I love Kim's idea of a Facebook, what was it, Kim? A virtual online team, a leadership team for that. So there's all kinds of, yeah. Say more.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yes, we just we put a new name to our team. It was an online virtual fundraising event team. So we just retitled them, and it's a brand new start. And it's like, okay, let's do this.
I think that's fabulous. And the other thing I would say on the new nonprofits is be looking around your community for the individuals, corporations, and if you have a community foundation who are stepping up to really show their commitment to the community, and make sure you're on the radar of those folks.
Okay, I'm going to do two more. So Susan is saying they had to recently postpone an event from March until June. And she said that they had an email campaign as a follow-up piece to a direct mail campaign that was ongoing and involved a match, and it's performed very well. And I know that we've seen the same, so thank you for that comment, Susan. And then another person from the chat is asking, have any of you used a photo contest to raise funds? And if so, how much did it raise?
We do the calendar every year, and that raises almost like $12,000, and that's a very easy fundraiser to do. And just like, yes, in the last 2 days, we started, we copied Barks and the Wisconsin Humane Society and did the people pay $15 to have their pets drawn. And in a day and a half, we're at $700 so far, and it's really fun. And it's a way for our volunteers, which we just stopped allowing volunteers in the building this afternoon, to do something from home that they can help us raise money as well. And it's been very cheerful to see on our Facebook page and kind of a nice respite.
I love that idea, Julie. I was just talking to Barks today, and it struck me that that's something the whole family could do. A lot of people with their kids at home, if we're recruiting volunteers, I think I'd be recruiting some whole families as a family activity and engagement, and draw those pets. And if that idea intrigues anybody and you'd like more details, we can get some links to how they laid that out.
Yeah, it's very easy to set up, and volunteers have signed up right away, and I think we've had 50 people sign up in the last day. And still signing up. And then the more we share every picture, so the more people see it, the more people are signing up.
All right, we have one more question. So Santa Cruz SPCA, do you have a lot of success with donate buttons on social media and donate buttons in Instagram stories?
We do. We have, that's the majority of how we do our Facebook fundraising, with those donate buttons, and having, every little story we tell about a pet in depth, we put that donate button. We've had that. I think we've had the donate button on almost every post in the last few weeks, and some pets raised, like $1,200, $1,600. Some pets raise $25, but that's money that you didn't have before.
All right, we are at time and I don't see any more questions or comments in the chat. So I am going to thank you all once again for attending. We really appreciate it. Stay well, stay healthy. We'll be sending out a recording of this to all of you, and please send along to your colleagues and have a great day. Thank you so much.